Keep it coming through Twitter at GH1TV. Our hashtag is GHToday. We're talking hard talk. We're looking at the President's press conference yesterday held at the Flagstaff House. We'll be joined by two guests. Gentleman first, Yao Pong. He's a lawyer and a lecturer at Central University. Yao, welcome.
Thank you.
You're looking snazzy.
I'm grateful.
Love it. And seated next to Yao is a lady whose middle name is Controversy. And she takes everything in her stride. She asks one question and everybody's going, Nana, Abba.
I love it, you know. I thought
you missed the first name.
I thought the president would be trending, but I'm trending.
No, you are trending. You are trending. You're the president.
I think he's trending alongside you.
Yeah, I love it.
Collab.
Yeah.
It's a collab.
I know.
Rosemond, Nanaba, Anamoah.
Featuring
JDF.
Do you know she's called Elizabeth?
Really?
Yeah, that's her name, Elizabeth.
Lizzie?
She's called Betty.
Man, Lizzie.
Sweet Lizzie. Hey, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. You were at the press conference yesterday, and we just want to, before we even delve into the issues, and there are 26 questions that were asked for the president, and all the responses are there. Yeah. First of all, paint a picture of the scene, and yeah, what it was like, the mood, the atmosphere. You were there, so
yes, I was.
This one, Anaba was there.
Yes. And I was there early. You know, I didn't want to be late because I'm very punctual, by the way. And the media had to be seated by 10:30, so I was there at 9. You know.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I'm that punctual.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a news
An hour and a
person.
half earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So I got there and I saw a number of journalists trickling in. You know, security was very tight, and they had boldly displayed on the security post that your accreditation or press card must be visible enough, and you must wear a tag that could identify you as being part of the press conference that day. So it was visible enough, and the journalists actually heeded to that, and I saw everyone wearing a tag. So I went through the security gate, went through the screening. Phones were not allowed. Of course, I left my phone in the car because I really couldn't be bothered carrying a phone at the time. I'm not looking for a selfie with the president.
So you couldn't live tweet or anything?
No.
You say you're not looking for a selfie? I mean, if you had the opportunity, you still wouldn't have done it.
No, I have a picture with the president already.
Okay.
I think
whatever.
Are you jealous?
So you went through?
So I went through, and then I saw a number of journalists I hadn't seen in a while. Stan Dugbe was there, you know, ushering the journalists in, pleasantries exchanged. You know, it was not too busy until at about 10:15 when a lot of journalists, you know, walked in, and I saw familiar faces, non-familiar faces. Then we went into the big hall, the arena for the press conference itself. You know, well decorated. The coat of arms was very visible, and I thought it was very good. It was very imposing. I mean, when you walked in and you saw the coat of arms, it just reminded you about the duty, the seriousness and the duty to serve Ghana. So it was very imposing. And then there was a large screen there that was telecasting some old events the president had attended, accounting to the people. Okay. That was on TV. It was quite blaring, so you could hear everything, and the president going through his achievements. At some point, I thought the editing was quite bad, but well,
as a
that's
journalist,
for another day. And so he was going through. Then at 10:30, Dr. Anamoah, the communication minister, walked to the microphone to tell us exactly what was going to pan out.
Everything happened on time.
So they were on time.
It happened on time.
They were on time.
And he said the president will be in at 11. A minute to 11, President Mahama walked in, and it was beautiful. He walked in, he got to the podium. Is that the call it the podium,
the
right?
the podium,
yeah. He walked there, and then it was the national anthem. You know, I felt I was standing on a football pitch. I was going to play football. I could feel it, you know. Yeah, I know. It was that beautiful. So everything went according to plan. And initially, I thought he was actually going to read a speech, and then we will quiz him based on the speech. And he said that is something that had been done in the past. Today, he wants to do something completely different. So he's not going to read a speech, but he's got a conclusion remark that he will read at the end. So he's given the opportunity for journalists to ask him questions. And so the ball was set rolling, and everything happened.
How were the journalists selected to ask the questions?
You raised up your hand.
Okay.
In my case, for instance, I didn't raise up because I had raised my hand together with Bridget, and you know there were a lot of people.
Could not be seen.
You know, who is seen? No, we could be seen
back there.
That was a good move.
I know.
Yeah.
So we got up and we said, no, we are still going. You know, he had called people. We thought there should be some gender balance because so far only one lady had asked the question. They were all men.
Who was doing the calling?
Dr. Anamoah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So he, you know, saw me. He said, "Nana, and I said, Bridget, let's go." You know. So we got up.
So you just
we get crashed. No, actually, Bridget gets crashed. So we went and then we asked that question. So that's how the journalists were selected. It wasn't anything special. I mean, you raise up your hand,
and they
you
select
catch his eye, and.
Were you given the opportunity to do follow-up questions?
No, it was a journalist. I mean, a question per journalist. So
but then I think some journalists asked 2 questions.
Inside their questions.
Yeah, I asked 2 questions.
That was smart.
You did?
Yeah,
right?
I asked 2 questions. Bernard asked 2 questions. Because
inside his time.
Inside his time.
Did.
Yeah, you have to do a 2-in-1. Find a way to put the questions together because you were not allowed to ask more than a question because they wanted to give everybody a chance. I mean, there should be some equity.
We'll go into the question you asked, but just to let us know, how long did it take for you to decide the question that you're going to ask? You know,
initially, when I went in there, my question was going to be about the Guantanamo Bay detainees in Ghana. And that was the first question that was asked. And so I said, why didn't I raise my hand up earlier? Because, you know, I knew this was a raging topic. So that question was asked.
What was going to be your twist to that question?
Well, I wanted to find out from me if he was going to listen to the clergy and other you know, civil society groups who are asking that he returns these people. That was going to be my question. I mean, they are here already. There's no point in asking why you brought him, the 2 gentlemen in here. But are you going to listen? Because he says he's a listening government. He's leading a listening administration. So if everybody, I haven't had one single person say, well, apart from the NDC communicators who say, I heard this morning an MP said I can take the detainees in my constituency. I mean, apart from the NDC communicators, everybody else wants these people out of the country. So are you going to listen to them? But he addressed it in the first question. My only problem is that the president spent too much time answering one question.
I got that feeling.
And I think he missed a couple of them.
Like the Guantanamo Bay, he spent 60 minutes answering the
out of almost 3 hours.
Yes.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Let me come to you, Yao. Yao, let's get your general impression of yesterday's event.
First of all, about the president. I think that I saw a personality that was in sharp contrast with the personality that I noticed just before Christmas. With you can't criticize me because you haven't been president before, and the whole campaign platform, demeanor, and outlook. I think he was totally different yesterday.
Is that not how we know him?
Yes, and I would have wished that there should be no difference in his personality if he wanted to be that buoyant and take on the gap of militancy, if you like, for want of a better word. And I think that we should see him as such. But this whole idea of taking a personality in one situation and then taking a different personality and justify it on the fact that you were on a campaign platform, because that is where a lot of people make a lot of allegations that they know cannot be proved. And when you ask, they say it was a campaign platform. So I'm saying that I would like to see this same personality up to the time that he will even leave office, and probably during the election campaign. Because that is what we want. We don't want, and I think that all others who also appear before us on a campaign platform, whether as a parliamentarian, campaigning for the president, or a parliamentarian, or any other candidate, we do not, well, at least I do not want to see you change your personality. Let us know who you are, and throughout, that should be consistent. And I think that was the key point as far as the form is concerned that I picked up. And I was so impressed that he was calm. Of course, there are a lot of serious matters. The Guantanamo Bay issue alone should have even calmed down a militant. And so I wasn't too surprised, but I think that I would prefer him to take up this gap of personality that he took yesterday and throughout, and also should be emulated by his own assistants.
The communicators, the government. In fact, I was actually coming to that because, I mean, I thought that this man, he was so calm. He even knew when to crack jokes.
Yeah.
He was in charge. he was in control. And for me, I felt that, okay, should government communicators be learning something from their boss?
I thought they go for classes every morning.
They do, right?
Yes, you see, and the difficulty, because earlier on in the morning, somebody has given some very distasteful response to the clergy, which I even expected that at the highest point, he should have been publicly disgraced, if you like, because that is not the kind of personalities we want to be around the president. But I wasn't too much surprised in the morning, because I actually compared him to the president when he, just in November and December, and I thought that, well, maybe this is the way to go. But then he comes up late in the morning with this calm demeanor and so on, and I said that, but that is not enough. I mean, he hears his people speak this way, treat Ghanaians who are paying them to maintain them in their state of life, and we are treated shabbily, and no comment is made. Usually he will say that so nobody should engage in insulting language and all that. He doesn't, usually, but they do, usually.
Okay.
Well, there are those also who feel that this whole thing was stage managed and it was an exercise in PR, and we'll address that issue pretty soon. You're watching GH Today, and let's take a look at some of the things that happened, what he said. Let's take a clip. And the President referred to the issue of making unpopular decisions based on the challenges that we are facing. So take a look at what happened yesterday, and we'll come back and have Nana and Yao comment on them. This is GH1 TV, watching GH Today.
3 years ago, when I was sworn in for my first term as president, the problems that Ghana was facing, while not insurmountable, were quite foundational. The power crisis is a prime example. The process of load shedding did not begin with my administration. The problems in our infrastructure have been apparent for quite some time. However, when confronted with the dilemma of how to resolve the problem, I opted not to go the route of a quick fix, because we as a nation cannot continue to make decisions for the short term. True progress must be sustainable. What we needed was a stable foundation and not a patch-up job, and that takes time. The decision I took to fully expand our energy infrastructure was not politically expedient or desirable. Indeed, the decision was quite unpopular. But leadership and popularity are not the same thing. And every so often in the course of leadership, one has to make decisions that are neither popular nor politically expedient. Such was the case during the 2014 Ebola outbreak in West Africa. As president, I took the decision to allow Ghana, specifically our capital city Accra, to serve as the base of operations for the United Nations and other relief organizations and efforts for the affected nations. There was anger and outrage and accusations that I was exposing our country to Ebola, that because of my decision, the virus would surely find its way across our borders and result in the loss of Ghanaian lives. But the alternative, to turn our back on our neighboring nations in their time of need, especially as the world was taking its time to respond, would have not only been insensitive, it would also have been inhumane. Having Accra to be the command post for humanitarian help during the Ebola crisis was not a popular decision, but I still maintain today that it was the right thing to do. Much in the same vein, my administration's decision to permit entry to 2 former Guantanamo Bay detainees, as well as some refugees from Rwanda, Syria, have been met with fierce resistance. I realize that our world is going through uncertain times. I realize, too, that no nation wants to open its door to terrorism. Still, we cannot let the fear of what might be cloud our compassion to make us turn a blind eye to the very real need that exists in our today's world. There are people who no longer have a country to call home, people who have been cleared of charges of all alleged crimes, and people whose only crime is being born in a country whose name is now automatically associated with a group of insurgents terrorizing their fellow countrymen and women. My brothers and sisters, Ghana has had a long history of humanitarianism. We've had a long history of being counted as a...
You're watching GH Today. Nana, is the president's compassion misplaced? That's the feeling I got from a lot of people, thinking we have prisoners who also deserve to be released.
Well, I thought
why are we showing
MFA,
compassion to...
Yeah, MFA,
you know,
one of the
Yemenis.
questioners asked that question, that if you're so compassionate, there are people on remand in our prisons, what are you doing about that? And I think he answered that question very well by saying that he's been the first president who's gone to the prison. I don't know how that translates into being compassionate with the prison, because you've been there, but they're still there. Then he goes on to say that he's been there with the Attorney General and the Chief Justice, and he's actually set up a court in the prisons to fast-track these cases, and he's also going to construct a remand prison at Nsawam to ensure some ease in the congestion that the prisons are facing at the moment. So they're going to move the remand prisoners into this remand prison, just so we know the difference, because you can't have a remand prisoner in the same cell with a convicted, you know, murderer, for instance. So I think he answered that very well. But then again, I don't think it was so convincing, because you're looking at how countries or people have suffered. Remember the 7/7 attack in London, for instance. Think about Boko Haram. I'm actually going too far. And the ripples are sent through people. I mean, when you're going to northern Nigeria, you're really scared. So if at the back of people's minds, they're thinking that these two people picked up when they were 20 years old, stayed at Guantanamo Bay, they probably didn't do anything wrong, because they've not been convicted anyway. They were never convicted. There were no evidence against them. But they stayed there for how many years?
And were probably tortured and subjected to abuses.
So what is the state of their minds? You know.
And I was talking about how that they could be bitter. I mean, anybody would be.
Exactly. Anybody would be. You know, anybody would be. And the last time I was listening to a discussion on the BBC, and a gentleman called in from South Africa and said, but if these Yemenis are so peaceful, then the Americans should rent a flat next to the White House for them. You know, just being sarcastic.
Yes, indeed. But we know where he's coming from.
Exactly.
We have some feedback, right?
Exactly. And Omar Farouk from Tamale says that Denmark is a Christian majority country, but are hosting some of the detainees. As the president said, we should be compassionate. Well, anyway, you know that the first president who passed by the man who had been attacked by robbers in the Good Samaritan parable was a priest who was going to the temple.
Yeah.
Let me come to you with this one, y'all. The clergy is saying that still, compassion or no compassion, the president got it wrong.
And is that ironic that the clergy rather should be against showing compassion to these ex-detainees?
Well, they are saying that the bishops, the Catholic bishops, for instance, are saying that, you know, be compassionate, but have some common sense as well.
So compassionate common sense, or commonsensical compassion?
Well, I mean, but then what we are saying is that we will be looking around the court whenever we convict someone. Then if he's a Christian or a Muslim or a religious person, the president should grant him a reprieve. Now he shouldn't go to prison.
Are we not stretching this thing too
We
far?
have the laws of man and the laws of God. When you commit an offense, you ask for forgiveness from God. It is for God to either grant you audience in his bosom, or you suffer punishment in hell. But you must suffer punishment for the crimes you commit on earth first. And even whilst you are there or afterwards, you ask for forgiveness from God. Then if we want to go by that proposition of compassionate emotions and things like that, then we are not even going to punish any criminal for the offense that he commits. I mean, Article 72 grants the president what you may liken to be a compassionate authority, that where the president, upon consultation with the Council of State and so on, believes that anybody in prison deserves to be released, the president can do so. You see, that's the prerogative of mercy. And it's almost akin to this. It's a power that each president, usually on 1st July and so on, they exercise. But that has nothing to do with what we are talking about now. You see, first of all, it's true that they have not been convicted. In fact, they have not been tried for any offense.
No, they were just held illegally.
Yes, but we did not contribute to the mess that they put in. In fact, President Obama expressed it in a very graphic language that it is a blot in the minds of Americans, and the breach of the habeas corpus principle
Bring it down for us.
Produce.
For
Oh, well, I mean,
habeas
sorry.
corpus.
Of course.
Yes, bring it down for
Right,
us.
I mean, in our country, when a person is arrested or detained, you have to produce the person, give him bail by the police within 48 hours, or produce him in court for the court to determine whether it is justifiable for him to continue to be in detention. So it just means bring the body to court.
Habeas corpus.
Yes, okay. Corpus means body,
Yes.
and habeas means bring, anyway.
Okay.
So, and he was so passionate about that because that is a principle that is over 1,000 years, and we have all practiced up to date. It doesn't matter what the person has done, that is a principle. So for them to keep these people, not for 48 hours or even 1 year, but for 14 years without trial, it's a very serious thing. And that was the basis, or at least substantial basis on which he said that before he leaves, Guantanamo Bay should be a thing of the past.
So it appears as if Nana and Yao, the president is helping President Obama to fulfill his pledge to close down Guantanamo by
he's leaving office.
Two prisoners. And I also understand that within the last week, somebody has been sent to Kuwait, another person was
Uganda.
sent to Saudi Arabia as well. So now it's 103 people left in that
Well, you see,
camp.
the lesson is that in those countries, people hold their leaders to their promises. Okay. So even though he's not going to stand for election, he knows that if he doesn't fulfill this fundamental promise to his people, it is going to extinguish nearly all the good things he's done. And that is one thing we don't do here. We just allow, and a promise, even in law, is a very important thing. It's an undertaking.
Okay. A promise is a promise. We promise to open the phone lines for you later on so you can get through and speak to us. The number will come up on the screen.
You seem too
shortly.
excited today. Is it because Anaba is here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, the numbers will be. We'll announce the phone lines pretty shortly, but I see WhatsApp lines flooded already. Social media, oh my goodness. So much love for this young lady here. But keep them coming through to all the social media platforms, and you have the opportunity to speak your mind very soon.
Now, what are the other big questions apart from Guantanamo Bay?
I thought the question about unemployment was instructive. I mean, it's heartbreaking that we don't have statistics on the rate of unemployment in this country.
But I'm worried about that because I went to the Ghana Statistical Service website and they have statistics. So where was this information coming from?
Well, what did you see? 5%?
Employment statistics. I'll pull them up for you pretty soon. Yeah,
Okay.
because I saw that yesterday when I was doing my research.
Because I have seen unemployment rate at 5%, and I look around and recap the stories of unemployment that we have read, and the number of graduates who come out of our universities and are still unemployed, and the statistical service says it's about 5%. I mean, please find out.
I'll find it for you.
Because I found
I
a very
will.
ridiculous
I
figure.
will.
Yeah.
But I thought when the president said that the statistical service is working with the World Bank to establish the actual rate of unemployment in this country, and I found it quite shameful that in 2015, for a country that is over 50 years old, we do not know our statistical, our unemployment data.
Would
that-
that be labor statistics? Because I am on statsghana.gov.gh.
You know that there are different types of unemployment.
Okay, so let me read what I have here, okay? So we have labor statistics. So we have employment sector of employment, employed persons 15 to 64 years by district and by region. This is 2010. And then you have a breakdown of all the people who
Six
are
years
employed.
ago.
6 years ago.
But we still have some statistics. It's not as
No,
if we don't
but
have
you know
anything.
there are types of unemployment.
Okay. And
The-
you want the breakdown.
Yeah.
The disguised and the...
But basically, for instance, America would release statistics at the end of the first quarter of the year and say that unemployment reduced by this figure. So this is the current rate of unemployment in America. This month, the U.S. added this amount of jobs.
Sure.
You know, so you can track. But in Ghana, I mean, who tells you the number of jobs that have been
So it
created?
means
Well,
that
let's face it.
since the last census, we have not even updated our data on unemployment.
Indeed.
So that was
This is from the
2010.
This is from the 2010.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have a problem because
but we
we're
pay
not
people
updating
to do
really.
jobs for us.
Yeah.
We pay people to do jobs for us. Is
Yeah.
it enough? It's quite embarrassing
Yeah.
that you want statistics
And it's from 2010.
and the only information, credible information you get
from
is
2010.
2010. So we have to wait for
Another
10 years
census.
time or maybe
22.
5 years time. So we do the next statistics and we end there. So it cannot be credible.
So that was a big question from Kobe Gomez.
Exactly.
Yeah, very
Kobe,
good question.
Yes. And so
Very.
for us, how would you rate the president in his response to this particular question?
Well, I think that, well, he may rate himself, but otherwise, I think, number one, he was truthful. Yeah. Because, I mean, even if we have 2010, it cannot be credible today. And if it's not credible, it's better that it's non-existent. So I think it was truthful, and he would have consulted his people. Probably they may have pointed this out to him, and he said, no, I'm not going to give credibility to this one. I would rather say that we need a better one. But to always go to IMF and World Bank to for these things. And things. See, when I hear the phrase policy credibility, and I cry. I mean, it goes beyond worry.
We have a clip on the president's response to this unemployment statistics question, and if it's ready, we'll probably have to play it so that you have a look and see, judge for yourself what his response was, because a journalist at Star 103.5 FM, Kobe Gomez, asked that particular question. It was right at the top of the question. I think the second question, and he wanted to know exactly what the questions about our statistics for unemployment were. So check it out here. This is Kobe Gomez's question and the president's response.
The Ghana Statistical Services has been working with the World Bank to acquire the capacity to be able to track our unemployment statistics. Currently, we don't have any statistics on unemployment. And so the training is going on, the equipment and others are being worked on so that in the near future, our statistical services can tell us what the level of unemployment is. In most countries, they can tell you it stands at 5%, or it stands at 10%, or it's increasing, or it's going down. Currently, we don't have the capacity, but that capacity is being built.
It appears Ghana is a constant work in progress, because it's always we are working with to get this done. We are working, it's in the pipeline. Nana, does that not worry you?
Oh, well, it's a mantra, isn't it? It's not about worrying me. I mean, are we ready to change the mantra, the chorus? We all sing it. I mean, it's become a cliche.
You mean our politicians sing it?
I think,
it's not just the politicians.
I think that we have given people the assurance of security of tenure. So, for example, people just go to work and they just return home, the public service. Even if you perform better than somebody else, the rules are so established that nobody cares about your efficiency. You will not be promoted just because you are efficient. If you are 10 years, this is where you go. 20 years, this is the next level. And then it gets to a cut-off. If you will get a certain position, you must be aligned to the government of the time. So otherwise, I mean, there should be no justification for the Statistical Service, for example, still maintaining a 5 or 6 year record. In this day and age, things happen so fast. Even in a year,
who take salaries and wake up every morning,
and they still wake up. They go pretend to be working. For there are people really in charge. You go there and you have a division just to deal with data issues. And if what we can rely on is a 6 years data, then it's better we don't have it. So I think we should just look at these areas. It's not respectfully enough for the president to just say that we don't have the capacity. We have people, there are institutions. You go to statistical department in Legon and other universities. In that statistical service, we have very efficient people there. If they are not performing, it has nothing to do with lack or absence of capacity. We have it. But it's because we don't let people understand. In the private sector, you can't do this. The same thing every day. We give you a job to do, and you must satisfy it and justify why they should even continue to employ you or even promote you at all.
Okay.
Nana, let me move us away from this. Let's look at the issue of taxes. So we all know, this year we were greeted with all of these taxes. And our good friend Bernard Able actually asked that question.
Very good question.
Exactly.
With figures and everything.
Yes. Well, he loves numbers. He's an economist.
Okay.
He loves numbers, yeah.
So, you know what? Let me just remind you that you're on our show, okay? You're not hosting your own show.
And I told you to calm me down. Yeah.
Okay, so calm down.
Get me an earpiece, actually.
She got here asking for earpiece.
Yes. This is Bernard's question.
Listen, okay, do you want to read that?
Yes, yes.
Quickly.
Why is Ghana a net importer of crude, not benefiting from low world crude prices? In the new year, we were hit with an average of 33% increases at the pump. In December, we got over 50% increase in utility tariffs. And then in January, a new income tax law. Something that your government, he was referring to the president, is squeezing everything out of us, yet you are not able to retrieve monies from people who should be returning money to the state. How do you convince us that you care for us with these specific policies? The man was just a smart man. That's like 3 questions in one.
I know. And he was seated next to me. He said, I have 4 questions. But I'm going to roll them into one.
So you guys were having this conversation?
Yes, go you.
And for me, I don't know what you think of the president's response. President says that, look, we need all of these monies to ensure proper growth and development of our country. I mean, here we are, people are affected, all aspects of our lives, by taxes that are slapped on us. And he made mention of the fact that we are not, kind of collecting taxes from places where we're supposed to be collecting them from. We're not ensuring the efficient, monitoring and collection of tax. I mean, we've been, since 2003, we've been paying toll, debt levy, we're still paying. Per the calculations, I'm told that we should have been done with all of this in 7 years, in 2003 till today.
Don't even jump in now, because the response is there. And then we can discuss it. The response to Bernard's question on the taxes, the 3-in-1, is
okay, well, Nida, roll it up for us right away.
We import petroleum products. We currently are not importing crude because the thermal oil refinery has been down. But then we also gain revenue from exports of crude oil as a result of the share that we have in Jubilee with the Tallow partners. Now, increasingly, when the price went up to about 93, revenue from crude oil was becoming a very significant part of our budget. With the drop from above 90 to about 32 currently, or 33, we have lost billions of cedis into the national treasury. But at the same time, it has reduced the price of petroleum products on the market. And government took a decision in July last year to deregulate the price of petroleum products. And so with the fall in the price of light crude, there has been an accompanying reduction in crude oil price, in petroleum product prices since July last year. Now, what has happened is, from the time that we started a deregulation, and the last increase in transport fares, price of petroleum products have gone down by more than 37%. And so even with the introduction of the levies, the energy levy, at an average of about between 26 and 27%, we still are below the deregulation point by almost 11%. And so we've not gotten to where prices were even before. Now, let's take the energy levy. Utilities have accumulated debts over the last almost 15 to 20 years. And as a result of this accumulation of debt, it has choked the credit lines of the utility companies to an extent that VRA today cannot go to any bank and establish an LC, because I think they owe virtually every bank in Ghana. As the line got choked here, they went and opened a new account in another bank. And then they'll take the credit until it gets choked. Then they open a new account with another bank. So now no bank, any bank, they go to say, hey, anymore, you know. Now, if we want a sustainable power sector, we have to deal with that debt. You must deal with that debt. And how are we going to deal with that debt? I don't have that money. If I had, I would pay on behalf of VRA. And so we need to take that money from somewhere. And so the point is, at the time when God has blessed us to have the price go down 37%, it was still even 11% lower. We take a little money and say, look, let's all contribute and pay off this debt, because we all use that power that VRA generated. I don't see what really we have done wrong. Aside from that, a portion of the debt, a portion of the levy is going to go to the road fund to pay arrears to contractors and also invest in the road sector. Happily today, more than 90%, as a result of my indigenization policy, I have harangued the road ministry. More than 90% of contractors working in our road sector are Ghanaian, our own people. And so if that money goes to them, they are going to invest it in building roads. And when they're building the roads, what will happen? It will lead to employment. Masons, steel benders, cement sellers, carpenters, truck operators, excavator operators, bulldozer operators will find jobs. And so it's a reinvestment in our own economy. That money is not going outside. It is being reinvested in our own economy. It's going to our road contractors. And our road contractors are going to invest it here. And if they make a profit, they're going to invest that profit here in Ghana.
Okay, well, I think that President, in effect, is saying that these are monies that we need to grow and develop our economy. But listen, I think that his countenance even changed. You know, for me, it was a very difficult question. But do you think that he tackled it head on?
Well, strictly speaking, I don't think that was a difficult question. It was a question that was expected. And therefore, you prepare. When you don't prepare for a question, that is what becomes difficult for you. And I think that he visibly exhibited confusion or inability to really deal with the issues. And some of them, with all due respect, border on propaganda. Because if you say that we are now extracting petroleum and exporting petroleum, the other aspect is that we are net importer of petroleum products. And therefore, we should benefit more from this reduction than if it was even higher. And you see, sometimes the impression is given that we lift oil and petroleum, crude oil from the Jubilee field almost every month. We don't. In a year, we do, if you are lucky, we do twice a year. So the last time we lifted, the petroleum price, the crude oil prices were not this low. And we earn a lot of money from it. And then the second time, we are yet to lift for this year. So that impression should not be created that because it is going down, we are losing in terms of the export. That, for me, is not how I understand it to work. Then the issue of as if taking from the rich, if you can drive your own car, then you should be in a position to buy petrol. Well, please, I mean, a lot of us have dependents. The so-called ordinary Ghanaian, we are paying the school fees of their children. Our parents are alive. We still have to take care of them. So if you think that you are taking it away from me, so the ordinary Ghanaian should live a better life, you are rather impoverishing them because you are reducing the reserve that I should have, which I should transfer to them. So that argument, that take from the rich and give to the poor, it works better elsewhere where most of those people are dependent on the government and not on the individuals. So that point has to be clarified. Then the issue of these taxes, I mean, when you take the income tax law, one thing I would say is that I would not put the blame at the doorstep of the president. I've made up my mind that in most of these cases, I'd rather blame Parliament. I think the president even got it wrong when he says that I have to take tough decisions to impose these taxes. He's not the one that is imposing the taxes. There cannot be any tax in this country unless Parliament passes an act of Parliament, unless Parliament approves of it. So he shouldn't even take the blame. As for the executive, we, the people of Ghana, know that the executive will always want to grab. And so on very important, sensitive matters like this, we've given the final authority to Parliament. And I don't want to hear about majority minority issues. We have only one Parliament. Whether you walk out or not, you were a member of that Parliament that passed the law. So that one, I will give it to him. I think that he has unnecessarily brought that burden upon himself. We should rather ask our members of Parliament. And you know, because of something I'm doing, I had to go and buy a copy of this income tax law at the Ghana Publishing. And the things that are in it, most inheritance tax and things, most of us, we don't even know. We're just talking about petroleum and income tax and so, but all sorts of incomes are in that tax law, which our members of Parliament pass. So let us for once also ask them, were they just sent there to do the bidding of the president? And for me, the highest point of the answer, which has been something that I've been talking about and I will remember, is the question, though the question appeared to be a bit, with all due respect, ridiculous by Moro, the answer really satisfied me. About
what was Moro's ridiculous question?
Appeared to me to be.
What was it?
That
this is the question.
Whether
Mr. President, you are finishing your first term in office while your party, NDC, will soon celebrate 8 years in government. How do you intend to cross the hurdle of convincing Ghanaians to give you a second term and thus the NDC a third term? How does this appear to be a ridiculous question?
Well, in the first place, for me, it is conclusive that in this country, parties don't form government. All right? Parties don't form. So this whole thing about NDC government, MPP government, it is not backed by any law in this country. The Constitution and Article 58 vests powers of government in one person called the president. And that person may be sponsored by a political party. So but he need not to be
administration, not an NDC administration.
No NDC administration at all. They cannot form government in this country. We are not in the UK, where the prime minister, who is virtually vested with absolute executive power, though he may share some with the Queen, that person must be a parliamentarian in the first place, the leader of the party that has majority. So he has both the executive and parliamentary powers, if you like. In Ghana, it is just an individual who may not even be a member of any political party. And if Parliament realizes that, then this wholesome acceptance of matters from the president will stop. A parliamentarian would see himself as a person independent of President Mahama.
Of course, we know that that is not so, because this is a very executive.
Well, but
we
that
can actually select ministers from Parliament.
Where the Constitution doesn't say people who share your certain views, say from amongst members of Parliament. These are the words of the Constitution. It doesn't matter what political party or Christian sect or any religious division that it belongs to. It just says from amongst members of Parliament. But it's because parliamentarians have found it convenient. So you see the head of or chairman of a committee defending the government as if he's part of the government.
Which you think is wrong. We're going to go for a quick break for the world in 60 seconds. But before that, Nana, were there other questions that appeared ridiculous to you?
What is a ridiculous question?
A question that appears ridiculous to you, like one that Moro posed, which lawyer?
I didn't find it ridiculous. I thought it was a good question Moro asked, because you know, the president actually was able to, you know, explain to people that I have only done, you know, one term. I'm going into my second, because there are people who actually believe that because the NDC has been there for 8 years, it means President Mahama is done. Time for change. Go away. And so the president had the opportunity to explain to people that I wasn't there. I've been here for 8 years. Per the Constitution, I have to present myself again to the people. But if they deem it fit enough to still keep me in this office, then so be it. I don't think it was a ridiculous.
I thought this was a weak question, though. Have you taken money for the Guantanamo people? Well,
Can you hold it there?
Let's go. Should have been,
can you hold it a couple?
What has, because it could be training, it could be something in kind, and not necessarily money. So I thought for me that was a weak question. If he says, if he got a military training, I thought that question was a weak one.
Now you're my guest.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I thought the question was weak. I would have asked, what did we receive for bringing in these Gitmo guys into Ghana? not ask a pointed question, were we paid? Because if I received military assistance, if I received some assurances of helping us to get something passed through, support from whatever quarter, it doesn't equate to money. So I can easily say, no, I didn't receive money.
So we could say
I
considerations?
Yes, what were the considerations?
What was in it for us?
What was in it for us? What are the benefits to Ghana? And then you can tell me. Yeah, so I thought that question was a weak one.
Well, I think he extended it by also telling us that, number one, the U.S. is furnishing us with information about persons who may be suspected of engaging in terrorism, and he even mentioned a Ghanaian who was in Denmark also, a lady who then went to Syria, and they have that information and some others that he may not be able to share with us openly. But I say that if indeed we didn't get any consideration or anything now, then I think we've missed a golden opportunity.
We should have negotiated.
Just because the U.S. at this point, they are in a weak negotiation point as far as this is concerned. Yeah. We are superior as far as this matter. At least President Obama is. And as I say, if we know how much he expects people to really take him on if he doesn't deliver this promise, it's because maybe we take ours just for granted. That is why we don't see the need for it. And so if we didn't get any tangible, as for the assistance, we all exchange information and so on. We all help each other. Have we not just caused the arrest of a British alleged murderer? It is also an important contribution to them.
Who has a Ghanaian passport, by the way? I saw a screenshot of his passport, and it says he's Ghanaian.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yes, today's graphic. It's a picture.
He is.
Yeah, he's Ghanaian.
He's a Ghanaian citizen.
Yeah, he's a Ghanaian passport. But then again, who knows? Because he comes to Ghana on one date, but it is recorded that he arrived earlier. There's a picture there. Yeah. So
I want to just tie this in with, you know, the Fox reports that make the rounds. I don't know if you saw it as well, all over social media.
Amazing.
And indeed, this U.S. rep, you know, made mention of the fact that there definitely are some future, you know, benefits. You don't think that maybe the president doesn't deem it, you know, wise to put it out there in the public domain?
Well, it is up to the president to release what information he finds necessary, you know, to release. I really didn't have a problem with his response to that particular question. I mean, there were allegations that he benefited from about $300 million.
And he addressed it,
He cleared the air on that particular issue. But as Yao said, we missed the golden opportunity because at the moment, the U.S., you know, like he mentioned, President Obama...
there's no free line.
That is
if
indeed there was nothing in it for us.
If indeed, but that's what he said.
That's what he said, so we're
because
going to go with
we were fulfilling...
Okay, so I don't know if you guys are getting the drift.
He said we were fulfilling a humanitarian response, and we are part of the international community. And he says we are allies. We are allies of the United States. You know, we've signed a non-surrender treaty with the United States, for instance.
In 2003.
In 2003.
He was referring to President Kufuor.
You know,
and in a way, jabbing him because you say, you people signed this one, which prevents us, us from sending Americans
to the
but it was Parliament that passed, and he was a member of Parliament.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Well,
you know,
so it's not so much an executive act. It was an act of Parliament.
Exactly.
So he was actually one of the parliamentarians who agreed to pass that law. So it is not...
But he must have been in the minority, though.
Well,
where the majority has
well, for me, there's only one
parliament. I mean, it's one parliament, and you're there for the people. You're not there for colours. You're there to represent our interests.
Did you get the sense that he was jabbing the MPP?
Well, at some point, what the incompetent question was asked.
What was that question?
I liked it.
What was that question?
So I can't remember the exact question,
look for the
but it was
for you.
about he being tagged as an incompetent president, and he had. I mean, his response was packed, laced and juiced and garnished with so much sarcasm and innuendos. I really liked it. I mean, the posture changed. He stood there, you know, changed his, you know, his posture and said, "You are an incompetent leader if you can't bring your people together."
But tell you what, I think the answer he gave rather goes to define leadership and not about performance. And incompetence or competence goes with performance, not leadership.
Well, and then he says that you're incompetent if you cannot tolerate other people's views. You know,
that was a very strong one. That was true. But listen, I mean, with all the posture and the description that you give, we all know that undoubtedly the president is an orator. Did you see some sort of evasiveness in everything that happened?
He didn't answer
yesterday?
Bernard Avle's question. He didn't answer it.
There was a question on GIDA. Did he answer that question?
He did, actually, about the monies that were being retrieved.
Yes, I'll just read a specific question to you. So Evans Mensah from
Evans
Joy
Mensah,
FM said, on December 9 last year, you said the Attorney General and EOCO should recover the outstanding 40.5 million CDs in the GIDA case. Today, it is the 11th, it was yesterday, of January. Has that been recovered? What did he say?
I can't remember his exact response.
But he answered.
Did I hear, what's his name, Evans say that he didn't answer that question?
Evans said he didn't.
I think he didn't give a direct answer.
Probably.
But he said that the Attorney General has been able generally to collect about 50 million. But I don't remember, I can be corrected, that I don't remember finding this in the budget. I mean, if in a year we have recovered so much, it should be in the budget.
Reflective in the budget.
Reflected in the budget. Otherwise, you then make people now speculate about whether or not this whole thing, with all due respect, was truthful. For example, he gave an example of the fact that Kenya, which is also a lower middle income, which I don't understand, country like we are, has a GDP to tax to GDP of about, he gave a figure which meant that Kenya's one was about 22%, and ours was far lower. I checked, and if the source is correct, because when you just go to Google, you will see quite a number, over 20 countries. Ghana is 20.0 or so, and Kenya is about 18. So I think that if, well, maybe he has a different source, but if this is correct, then I think that because of the way the questions come, it's better you minimize the giving out figures. Because once you get figures wrong, people will not say that it was inadvertent or you made a mistake. They may think that you are concealing a truth, a fact.
The president actually alluded to the suits now against the Attorney General, and he made mention of the fact that now we're making the efforts to collect these monies, and now this suit. Did we even have to get to this point? How long ago has this been? We've been talking about this.
Well, we follow due process, don't we? I mean, he's a lawyer.
Yeah, but I think what he got, again, what he got wrong, it's a bit technical, but he said that yesterday, for example, he said this morning, that was yesterday, when they were taking steps to go to do 5A, it just means to confiscate or attach in law the property of Woyomi and to sell it, of course, with a court order. They were served with a writ. They were not served with a writ, because I know that a gentleman from Hohoe also has sued the Attorney General, Martin Amidu, and Woyomi, and saying that the Supreme Court didn't have jurisdiction to order Woyomi to pay the money, because that jurisdiction is reserved to the High Court. And the court has consistently said that if they share a jurisdiction with a lower court, that lower court will be, you have to go to the lower court first before you can come up to the Supreme Court. So they are challenging the review jurisdiction of the Supreme Court.
Right.
And that suit was filed over a month ago, and I think that the Attorney General has been served before yesterday. What they were served yesterday was what we call application for stay of execution. So it wasn't the writ that was served on the Attorney General.
Right.
These ones are very technical, but then when you are speaking from that highest point, then it's important that the advice given you, if you say that they were served with a court paper, a court process, that's fine.
Okay.
Because otherwise, then if I do a search right now, whether or not the Attorney General has been served with a writ, and if when, it will never say yesterday.
It will never indeed.
I mean, you asked a very interesting question that got everybody talking. Before we get to that, I know Kafi wants to do that. I'll leave that for Kafi. Before we get to that, there were suggestions that as journalists, we didn't seek our interests. For instance, I think they cited the issue of Samuel Nyama, who lost his life, through that presidential convoy thing, and the issue with Stan Dogbe.
And LI 224.
Thank you.
2224.
Do you think that as journalists we missed out?
I think we failed. I mean,
you failed yourselves, but not us.
Not you.
Questions for us.
I think we disappointed ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, when I left, I was just thinking that, you know, there was a journalist who was allegedly manhandled at 37. His recorder was broken.
Yeah.
People
okay, so our recorder, because it's a public asset.
All right, you know, was it true? Could we have asked the president what he has done with Stan Dugbe? Because there were calls that Stan should be fired, blah, 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 blah. Could we have asked the president that question? We didn't. Samuel Nyama, yes.
I expected you to ask a question about
sports.
But nobody asks about sports.
Yeah, that was a big failing. But the probably was because there was only one journalist per media house, and you couldn't ask follow-up questions. But talking of questions, the question which has been trending since it fell out of the luscious lips of our guest here.
It's mine.
Yes. This is the question and the response. Take a look.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, and Happy New Year to you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Earlier, you mentioned that you alluded to the fact that your gray hair is increasing, and I think it's the otherness about you this afternoon. I want to know from you, since your assumption of office, what you have done to reduce pressure on you, on the presidency. Because if any prominent person dies in this country, they call on the president. A business delegation calls on the president. Anything at all the president is referred to. What have you done to reduce the pressure on yourself, to concentrate on the things that you find very important to you, and what keeps you awake at night? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pressure on the presidency. Yes, you're right. We run an executive presidency, and often in an executive presidency, there's more pressure on the person who occupies the position. But the Constitution gives you the vice president to assist you. And then you also have ministers of state in the presidency. You have presidential staffers. You even have your chief of staff. And so what I've done to reduce pressure is to make sure that I'm delegating some of these things. Ghanaians are normally not happy. They want to see the president himself. They're trying to announce the death of a big paramount chief. They want the president to be the one to represent them. So what happens is when I'm available, I do my best within the time that I have to see if I can, shoulder some of that responsibility. But when it's really impossible, then I make sure the vice president, represents me, or the chief of staff. I'm sure that lately the chief of staff has received several delegations, informing them us about the passing away of somebody. It's our tradition. You cannot run away from it. And so we continue to do that. But like I said, delegating more, to other officials in the presidency helps to reduce the pressure and then make you concentrate on some of the other things that you should be paying attention to. What keeps me awake at night? I hardly sleep, so I don't know what keeps me awake. If you ask my ministers, sometimes they wake up in the morning, and I have called somebody at 2 a.m. and they either come to the house in the morning and they say, "Oh, this minister is here." When he come down, "Oh, what is it?" He says, "My friend, call me at 2 a.m. I said, "Oh yeah, I wanted to talk to you about something," and I probably would have forgotten what it was I wanted to talk to him about. But if I do remember, then I tell the minister, pay attention to this or pay attention to that. But God blessed me with sleep. I'm a good sleeper. I don't sleep much. I sleep short hours. But when I fall on the bed, I go off like a light. Ploop.
A question that Anamoah asked the president, and that was his response. He said, "Good to see you, Nana." Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of
I was the only journalist who got that.
Yes. Yeah. And he was good, happy to see you.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that what it is? Why do you think this question alerted such a response? Let me read let me read something for you. Willie Vine GH on Facebook says, "Can someone ask her, after 3 years, that was the only question she could ask the president? Why did you ask the president this question?" And it was like a two-in-one question.
Yeah, because the president looked tired. If you were there, it was obvious. When he started talking, it wasn't the same John Dramani Mahama. President John Dramani Mahama. He looked tired. His gray had increased. And the thing about me is that I don't go for the obvious. I'm very observant. So I will not go for the questions everybody wants to ask. I look out for what people will not think about. The president looks stressed. Look, you tune in, sometimes it's not even covered. The media houses don't even show it. But the presidency is always inundated by funeral delegations. I mean, if some chief has died somewhere, what is their business coming to the Flagstaff House to come and call on the president?
Tradition.
Yeah, when we have a raging energy crisis.
It's tradition.
It's tradition.
Yes.
But we have a chieftaincy minister. We have a chief.
Inform the head of the house, and the president is the head of the house of Ghana.
We have a chieftaincy
that
minister.
This is what is happening.
He's delegated that power to someone.
He said Ghanaians don't like that. They want to see him around everywhere.
Why should it be so?
The old man, Nathan Kwao used to do that a lot, remember?
Nathan Kwao, that's
Nathan
true.
Kwao, yes.
That's true.
That was
why
one of
should
his
we
main
go to
roles.
that? There's a business delegation. We have a trade minister, for heaven's sake. Why is a trade delegation not going to the
because
trade ministry?
Because we run a very executive kind of administration where
But
everything is vested in the president.
That's true.
And that's how come when the Black Queens don't get their money, they need to call the president.
So we have no need for ministers.
Then we have no need for ministers.
Do you realize that
sometimes
these ministers accompany these delegations
Absolutely.
to the president?
Yes. Absolutely.
Because they need the big man to see that.
And the same thing goes for even the ministers. When there are matters, and even the president sometimes, when there are matters that can be dealt with by ambassadors in these various countries, we pay them. It has to take a president or vice to go there. The last time, even domestically, the vice president had to go and open a market in Obuasi. Sometimes, and sometimes they fly, and then about 40 convoy will be on the road to Obuasi or Kumasi.
So your argument is that we are putting too much pressure on the leaders. There was so much chatter on Twitter, on Facebook
I think you see, people are used to confrontational interviewing. You know, they were expecting something. They were expecting the president to talk more about Dumso, the president to talk more about Gitmo, the president to talk more about taxes, which I believed he had answered. I mean, no matter how...
Did you talk about the power minister? Nobody asked that question.
No,
I was surprised.
It didn't come up.
I was surprised.
Bernard mentioned utilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about that ministry that was created and the man has gone. What's happening next? Who is in charge?
Well,
with Nana's question, I think the first question, that was the question. The second one is just collateral.
Yeah.
Which is the collateral one?
The collateral, yes.
Were you satisfied with that response? Or there was a bit of confusion?
I think it was useful to the president because that is what made him exhale, or he breathed in a bit and he started laughing. And because he had got to the height of trying to explain to us, which I'm very sure he was not quite satisfied that we accepted his explanation on the Guantanamo issues and even taxes.
So it was a stress reliever for him?
It was a stress reliever. I think that is a good opportunity for him to now brief in and the people around, because you had not heard the people, the people there either laugh or clap for a while.
Hashtag stress reliever.
Yeah. So I think that but it's the second part that a lot of people are asking, what keeps you awake? But it also compelled the president to give a seeming contradictory answers.
Okay.
I don't sleep. I sleep a lot. And then he quickly was able to say that I sleep a lot, and I'll put it, I sleep a lot within a short time.
So you within a short time, you know how when you're driving and you're tired and you just park for a few minutes and catch
exactly.
I think that's what he was driving at.
The first part was a very important question because I've always had the point. I mean, why should we always have to be? It has to be the president. The president must go and open roads, flyovers. What are these ministers being paid for? DCs are there.
Yes, and why are they not doing that? We need to wrap this up quickly. But Nana, so were you happy with the responses? And this is our final question to you.
Was I happy? I mean, the second question, what keeps him awake at night, is an insight into the character of the man. That was what I was looking for. Because if
Did you get it?
I didn't. Because I wanted the president to tell me that, for instance, People are losing their jobs because of the raging energy crisis. People have died because of the energy crisis. So when I go to bed at night, I'm struggling to find solutions to these problems. So it was an insight into the man's character. That is why I asked that question. But of course, people were expecting probably to say, Mr. President, it is a
So you didn't get the response you wanted?
I didn't get the response I wanted.
You think he was a bit flippant sometimes or too casual?
He's a communicator. He knows how to, he knows how to get around questions. But the first question, I still stand by it. It was a good question because if you expect the president to build your roads, if you expect him to solve the energy crisis and he's not healthy, there is pressure on him.
And come to your harvest and all kinds of things.
Trust me, your question got me to take a second look at him because I could tell. I was telling you this one when I came in. He looked aging. You know, so hey. Big ups.
Good job.
Big ups to my girl here.
Please keep reading the screen. There's too much love for you now.
Oh my goodness.
They want to know when you're coming back.
We're going to have to read something.
Very, very soon. Watch out for me on a screen near you or in front of you. Don't change your remote or touch it. But yes, I was also disappointed we didn't ask any question about sports. I thought there should have been a sport journalist in there.
Yep.
I thought so. Maybe Dennis Mepuri should have been there.
And talking of Dennis Mepuri,
I mean, you were there, Nana, but you were there. I mean, we all know your love for sports.
I have my bias, you know. I have my bias.
She's a man.
Was it the cameras?
No, she has the best team in the world. She supports the best team.
Sorry, Leader.
Forever.
Terrible game last night.
Yes, but well. I will take that 1 point. Okay, so thank you very much.
You guys, once I wrap it up, let me see some passes going on here. So, I hope that